With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
We open the show on a depressing note. Trillo's at the beach. So for those of you who are looking for WMC, you're getting nothing of it. You ask, what is WMC? Whining, moaning, and complaining.
I couldn't come up with something for the C. I was weapons of mats.
Oh. Yeah, that'd be WMD. Weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But no. So he's at the beach, trying to keep those wild kids under control, and trying to give Lisa a break. Because, Lisa's got 4 kids. The two of them have together plus Matt. So.
Sounds like something my wife would say.
Oh, mercy. It's all true. It's all true. All right, so. Opening half hour brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia. Routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. All right. This is Big 12 Media Days taking place now in Frisco, Texas, at the Star. And Brett Yormark, as expected, fully backs the 5+11 model for the playoff. Because deep down he believes he'll get more playoff teams. Red, have you seen your league? Okay. All right. I appreciate you being confident, but last year you would have had 2. If it had been a 16-team playoff. Last year, he would have had 1 with a 12-team playoff. He would have had 2 with a 16-team playoff. Your question, please.
Well, I was going to say it does give them the best chance to get that third team, if they would have a deserving third team.
Todd, have you seen that league?
I'm not saying it's. There's the possibility once every 5 or 6 years the ACC or the Big 12 could have a third team. It's not going to happen often. I know that.
Yeah. Look, let's be honest. The 5+11 is still going to benefit who? The SEC and the Big Ten.
Yes.
Okay. So let's take last year's college football playoff standings. We'll just use that. That's the most recent one. That's the best we can get, okay? The Big Ten would have had the 4 teams that they had. It would have been Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon, right? The SEC would have had 6 because Alabama and South Carolina State would have gotten in. The ACC would have actually had 3. The Big 12 would have only had Arizona State, with Notre Dame and Boise State getting the other 2 spots. That's it. That's what you got. Okay? Yormark says, quote, we want to earn it on the field. He's correct about that. It might not be the best solution today for the Big 12, given the automatic qualifiers. But long-term, knowing the progress we're making, the investments we're making, it's the right format for us. And I'm doubling down today on 5+11, and I know Jim Phillips of the ACC will, and I'm sure some of the other conference commissioners will as well. The problem is they don't have the votes. This is all a negotiation between the SEC and the Big Ten. They have the power. And this is what I try to tell people all the time. Whomever has the power, you can come up with all the ideas you want. If you don't have the power, it doesn't matter.
Did you watch the Tony Bettini interview last week?
With Joel Klatt?
Yes.
I did not.
Boy, he is a TV guy, as you said.
Well, everything he's doing is the idea of creating more TV inventory.
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. Because it's not like, I've talked to Tony, I don't know, how many times have I talked to Tony? 3, 4 times? Like, and I'm talking just a couple of guys just talking and, may have been on a sideline, so that's our equivalent of being at the bar. But the reason he wants the 4 is that he wants to then put 3 against 6 and 4 against 5 instead of doing 1 versus 2 in the championship game.
Well, the other part of that is he kind of talk like that way those those big non-conference games won't count early in the season.
Yeah, in other words, by doing that, actually they wouldn't, right? He's actually right about that because those games would count for at-large bids, right?
I'm not sure they would count at all because all those teams that are playing those big games are getting in with all those automatic qualifiers.
You'd think.
I mean,
but I'm saying, but in theory, in other words, if you're talking about, let's just say, Penn State and Ohio State finish first and second, then it's Oregon, Michigan, but we'll just pick random, Indiana and Iowa. Okay. All right. Iowa does play Iowa State in the non-conference. That's every year, no matter what. They play the Cyhawk game. All right. There's a good chance that even in a 16-team playoff, Iowa, as the number 6 seed in the Big Ten, is not getting in as an at-large. But if they were to defeat, let's just say Oregon's the third-place team. If they were to defeat Oregon, they're in. And by finishing in 6th in the Big Ten, it was the conference games that got them there, not the non-con games. The non-con games would come into play for somebody that's 7th and 8th. Or, here's the other part, Todd. The non-con games come into play if you lose this game. Say Oregon loses. Iowa wins, automatic bid. Oregon can still be an at-large team.
Why would you want to give your 6th place team a shot? I don't get that part.
Oh, no. I'm just telling you what Tony's plan is. I didn't say.
I know that. I just don't. I don't get from a football sense why you'd want to give your 6th place team a shot.
Well, why does the NFL give the 7th place team a shot?
We're not in the NFL right now.
Don't you feel like they're warping in that direction?
Well,
16 teams 16 teams will be actually 2 more playoff teams in the NFL.
But there's only 32 NFL teams. There's 100 and some college teams.
Right, exactly, because you would be at 12%. 12% of all your schools would make the playoff, which is the point I tried to make about the 76. You'd go from 19% to 21%. Not exactly as much of a jump as people realize.
I mean, I do wonder how much of this is, like I said before, we don't have to make a decision. They don't have to make a decision yet. I do wonder how much of this is still posturing and how,
I think Tony's locked in on this idea. It doesn't mean that he can't be talked out of it and talked into 5 plus 11. Right? But if the SEC gets on board with it, right, then it's done, because the Big Ten and the SEC have all the power, and they also get the majority of the money.
Well, I mean, it sounds like he's going to have to convince Greg Sankey of this idea.
Well, I think he's going to have to convince. It's not just Greg Sankey of the idea. He's going to have to convince the SEC coaches of the idea. I think that's the big part.
Well, I mean, if you get the head of the snake, you at least get 2 of you trying to talk the coaches in.
That's true. But part of commissioners' jobs are not only to come up with ideas like this, but part of a commissioner's job is also to listen to the coaches and athletic directors. I mean, in the end, the commissioner works for the schools, right? In the end, that's who they work for.
I mean, as of right now, I mean, he seems so set on this that I just hope it doesn't blow everything up. How's that?
My question would be, where'd you play the games? Would they be home games? Or would they be neutral games? One in Indianapolis, one at Lambeau Field? I don't know.
I mean, I get it, but then, you're asking college fans, you say that, you win one of those games, you win 3 I mean, how many times can you ask your fans to travel somewhere, though, too?
Well, you're already doing that anyway, and we saw that this year.
Yeah.
Penn State fans did get a home game with SMU, which they came out in droves, over 106,000. And then they had to go to Glendale in Arizona. And then from Arizona, they had to go to Miami Lakes. Out, back, down, back.
Did they have more people at the Orange Bowl?
Yes.
I was going to say, I feel like I knew people went to the Orange Bowl. I don't remember anybody saying they went to Glendale.
After they saw the Glendale crowd was pretty good, to be honest with you. The Glendale crowd I thought was very good. But I'll say this. I think after seeing the matchup was Boise State, I think what fans did was they rolled the dice on Miami, that Penn State would win the game in Arizona.
And I do wonder how that goes with somebody with a smaller alumni base, too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Penn State grads in the West Coast.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there were people from the West Coast that came over because I ended up talking with some of them. But that's one of the issues you have with the NCAA basketball tournament. That's why you've noticed the NCAA basketball tournament has made certain adjustments over the years. So let's start with adjustment number 1, the pod system. Not perfect, because when you're in the pod system, Penn State played Temple in Tucson, Arizona. Okay, over here in the back, like neither school is close. But San Diego State was there. In other words, they try to regionalize as many teams as possible for the opening 2 rounds. Okay? Now, the reason that we went out there to Tucson to play Temple is that San Diego State was going to be the next opponent. Well, that meant they ruled the pod. They were there. Okay? But they went to the pod system. Number 2, if you are the number 1 seed, you get the number 1 overall seed. You get to select the region you're in. That's one of the privileges of being the number 1 seed. You get to select the region you're in. If you notice last year, 4 number 1 seeds, and who came out of the West? Was it Duke? Did they have to play in San Francisco?
I believe eventually.
Yeah, because they probably were the 4th number 1 seed. But if you notice, the top seeded teams stay relatively close to home. And that's how they try to work it regionally. So they understand the travel part of it, because if you're sitting there and saying, okay, San Antonio is the Final Four. All right, what am I going to do here? Well, it turns out I'm an Auburn fan. So in round 1, they're playing close to home. This is great. I mean, I can go to that. Then you have to make a decision as to whether the regional's close enough. But they at least try to make it close enough in the regional. Now, not everybody is close. But that's what they try to do in the first round, is get as many teams close in the pod as possible. And then you work from there. Now, it's not. Is it going to be perfect? No. But I remember when Florida Gulf Coast won, they had to come up from Fort Myers. San Diego State was there in Philadelphia. This is in Philadelphia. But Duke was there. Georgetown was there. Creighton was there. Right. So for Georgetown and Duke, those are relatively easy trips, and they were the 2 higher seeds. I mean, it's more difficult in football. To do, especially with the bowl system that you're utilizing in the quarterfinals and, of course, the semifinals. I mean, this year's semifinals are the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. So, for example, regionally, they put Notre Dame played Georgia, but Georgia was the host team in the Sugar Bowl. Oregon was the Rose Bowl, and they hosted Ohio State. And then Texas, Arizona State had to play in the Peach Bowl, so neither one was really regional. So Georgia was regional. Oregon was on the West Coast. And Boise State was the host of the Fiesta Bowl.
I do wonder when we get to those, when they set up the bracket this year, if they try and set it up so like the Big Ten or the old Pac-12 teams end up in the Rose Bowl and the SEC team ends up in the Sugar Bowl.
Well, they did. Oregon went to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, well, I wonder if they try and do it again this year. I think that's probably best for them.
Yeah, except the Rose Bowl isn't hosting a quarter this year.
It's hosting one of the semis, though, right?
They're hosting the semifinals.
I mean, you can make it look like the upper seeds get the semifinals. You can't guarantee it.
Right, because you had 2 Big Ten teams last year in the Rose Bowl. Yeah. Now, I think this is the last year, though, that the Rose Bowl hosts a semifinal. From now on, they're going to be a permanent quarterfinal site.
Wonder how that decision works out in 15 years.
I think the Rose Bowl's happy with it.
Yeah.
Because to them, to combine the parade with the day, with the game, has always been exactly what they wanted. Now, the only difference is going to be instead of kicking off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Pacific time, they'll kick off at 1. That was the other concession they made when they get to be a quarterfinal. So it'll be a 4 o'clock Eastern time game, 1 o'clock Pacific time. But there's plenty of time between the end of the parade for people who are going to the game to go down the hill and into Arroyo Seco to go see the game. And it's not that, I mean, and I walked back, this is like the 95 game with Oregon. I actually took a minute and walked up to Colorado Boulevard, and I walked. It was not a difficult walk. At least I didn't think so.
I just wonder, in a sense, as we get further away and more into the playoff, I feel like the tradition part is probably going to be lost a little bit for some of these bowl games.
Yeah, but I think you're still going to get the SEC champion going to the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
The ACC champion going to the Orange Bowl. Now they couldn't do that last year because A, the ACC champion did not get out of the first round, and B, the Orange Bowl is the semifinal last year. But the ACC champion traditionally would still go to the Orange Bowl, SEC champion to the Sugar Bowl, because these are the automatic bids. The Big Ten champion probably to the Rose Bowl, right? So, the Cotton Bowl gets the Big 12 champion. But the automatic bid teams are not going to be, they're going to be seeded 1 through 4. So it's going to depend who those 4 seeds are as to what bowl game they get to.
I do, again, I've said this before, I do hope if they go to 16 that all 8 of those first round games or all the first round games are at home, because I really think people like those home games, like that playoff home game.
I do too. I also heard something that was interesting, that there would be 7 first-round games and the top 2 teams would get a bye.
I think you have to. I think I have no problem rewarding the top 2 teams.
Yeah, neither do I. No, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I mean, and plus 7 first-round games, that's a lot of games to schedule. I mean, 8 becomes like, wow, how are we going to... I mean, if you look last year, they played 1 on a Friday night and 3 on Saturday. Well, now you have to accommodate, even if it goes to 7, you have to accommodate 3 more games.
Almost guarantee they go Thursday and not Sunday, obviously.
Oh, they're not going Sunday.
No.
They'll go Thursday head-to-head with Amazon.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at Polestar.com.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Yeah, power brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, Medicare products. And they do everything they can to take care of you, because guess what? Customer service means everything to them. They try to do everything they can to save you money. It is all at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. So the Tony Petitti plan for the playoff brings with it pluses, and obviously there are minuses. Many people are not enamored with the 4 automatic bids to the college football playoff for the SEC and the Big 12. They feel that they, quote, should earn it. Okay. And that's a legitimate argument. And, like, should the 6th place team of the Big Ten get in? And that's a good question. That's a fair question. Tony's idea brings with it, please, hold the applause for this incredible, brilliant analysis, the potential for more money. Todd, please. No need to lavish me with praise over that analysis.
I'm holding my applause.
You aren't the only one. Right. But that's what it's about. I will say this. In terms of the intrigue, Penn State fans were intrigued by trying to win the Big Ten championship game. Oregon fans were intrigued by winning the Big Ten championship game. All of us sitting in Lucas Oil Stadium knew that they were both in the playoff. Right?
Yes.
I mean, really. I mean, in fact, not only did I think they were in the playoff, I even stated it in the pregame show. I said the bottom line is the winner of this game will get the potential of being the number 1 overall seed, but also, regardless of that, I said we'll be one of the top 4 seeds and we'll have a first-round bye. We knew that going in. As opposed to this idea, an idea that certainly has flaws, but 6 plays 3, 5 plays 4, and the winners get in. So, in other words, there are legitimate stakes. What do fans enjoy? Games with stakes.
A and DA.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm saying.
Yeah.
In the Big Ten, there's a good chance that, I'd say a better than even chance, that one of the participants in that 3-6-4-5 would be either Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, or Oregon. There may be a year that one of them finishes 7th. Who knows? There may be a year that 2 are in these games. It may, but you're guaranteed one of those teams to be in. Your 4 biggest ratings draws. One of the 4 is going to be in, if not 2 of the 4.
Things didn't go well if all 3 are in.
Yeah, in that thing?
Yeah.
Somebody came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, I get it from all aspects except for the football aspect. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you. I feel kind of weird about the 6th place team having a shot at the 16-team playoff, but I get it from the monetary and the monetary point of it, and possibly even. I think an Indiana fan cares. I think an Iowa fan cares about that that game.
Yep.
I mean, if Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, is it more disappointment to be in that game?
No, you're fighting for your playoff life.
But then again, if you win, you're in the playoff, and everybody's happy again.
I know, but you're fighting for your playoff life. You're not guaranteed anything.
No. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things, we say it all the time. We talked about expansion, talked about the extra, would have talked about the extra wild card. I'm not a big fan of the expansion, but I'm sure I'll be okay with it once the games start. You know what I mean? I'm certainly going to watch those games.
To me, look, I when they first started talking playoff, I said go to 8. Then I remember 6 months before, this was 6 months before, I said, how about at least a 12-team playoff? And then all of a sudden they came out like, hey, we're thinking about a 12-team playoff. I'm like, okay. Right? We had talked about that idea 6 months before. I mean, we're at a point now, there's so many good teams. So many good teams. Like, just go to, the 16 thing. I feel the same way about 76 in basketball. Do I think that 68 is the right number? Yes. But I know you want to expand. Well, if you're going to expand, don't bother expanding to 72. Go to 76.
And it kind of sounds like we're getting close to that point, the thing I was reading yesterday, that it is going to be 76 and it probably is going to happen.
Yeah. But again, I go to the percentages, Todd.
Yeah.
19% right now up to 21%. That means 79% aren't in. Now, the argument's going to be, okay, 79% aren't in. What's the percentage of Power 5 schools that aren't in? And that's fair, especially after the SEC last year had 14 out of 16 in. Now, the SEC is sitting there in football. They got 3 in last year. 16-team playoff, they would have had 6.
Again, this is another thing I'm torn about because, basically right now, most of all the good teams are in the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah, and with money, it's going to stay that way.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where they probably deserve most of the teams, but does the world want to see all but one SEC and all but one Big Ten team in the NCAA tournament? The
Big Ten last year. The Big Ten last year got 8. If they went to 76, the Big Ten would have had 10.
My feeling is what was the last team from the SEC that didn't get in last year? It wasn't Oklahoma, was it? Oklahoma was in.
Yeah, they were in. It was two teams that didn't get in last year. Let's see, Vanderbilt made it.
It was South Carolina and somebody.
South Carolina, and was it Mississippi State?
I think so. One of them was kind of close, I think it was. And it's one of those deals. Is that team better than the second-place team in one of the smaller conferences? Probably.
Well, this is the question I always ask, and this is a modern-day question and probably a bad question to ask. Okay? But the bottom line is, if Vegas were looking at the game, would the team you're talking about be the favorite?
Probably. The SEC team would be, yes.
That tells you a lot.
Yeah, I know, and that's kind of my point is, do we need that? Do we need the all but one SEC team in? You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the 6th place Big Ten team in the you had your chance to prove yourself during the regular season.
Right.
I'm just kind of torn because they probably deserve the bid, but the happy-go-lucky Pollyanna side of me wants to see the 2nd place team from the MEAC or something to get in rather than that 14th SEC team. But that's just. But the SEC team deserves it more, so it's just keep it at 68.
Well, I mean, in other words, here's the issue that you have with, like, for example, the quad system, the net system. All these teams in the SEC are doing well. So every single time they played a game down the stretch, guess what it was?
It was a quad
It was
one.
a quad one game. Meanwhile, the other teams we're talking about they're playing quad 3, quad 2 games.
Again, it's the rational side of me and the Pollyanna side of me arguing with each other.
Yeah, right.
You want to see more teams have a chance. In a perfect world, you'd want to see more teams have a chance. But I think this ends up giving us the same teams.
In a 76, my guess is now that you're talking about 8 more bids. Okay. So with 8 more bids, I would think that the door would be open to an extra Missouri Valley bid. The door might be open to an extra American bid. The door might be open to an extra Mountain West bid. Right? But then there's still 5 other bids.
And I'm also talking about old college basketball at this point, too, because, as well as I do, some of those mid-major conferences aren't going to have those teams anymore just because that experience they build, those, for that third, fourth, and fifth year, they're probably going to be at one of those Power 5 schools.
Right. I mean, now, keep in mind the number of schools that are in these conferences now. Schools that were not Power 4 before. Cincinnati wasn't a Power 4 school. UCF wasn't. Right? They weren't.
Don't tell UCF that, at least the football program.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're ones that have moved up into this. Houston was not. I mean, Houston was in the Final Four last year, but Houston was not a Power 4, Power 5 school 4 years ago. Okay.
I guess they are in football now, too, aren't they?
Yeah. They're all in that Power 4 category in football, Power 5 in basketball.
Yeah.
Big East is the 5th, by the way. And
who's going back on ESPN, by the way, I saw today.
What is?
Big East Hoops.
Oh, good. Oh, that's good. That's a big plus for them. That'll be great for them.
Not the weird ranked game at 6:00 on FS1 on Saturdays.
No.
Again, we are getting an expanded NCAA tournament. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I like your idea of the 2 first 4s at different sites. And I just wonder if part of this is just not liking change all that much. 68, wasn't happy with 68, now not happy with 76. Enjoy 68 now, probably will enjoy 76.
Yeah, I mean, once it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people, when it went to 68 and they had the first 4, it was like, oh, how's this going to work? Because I think everybody assumed it was just be all the 16s and the 15s. No, they did a good job of making sure 12s and 11s were there. Okay? And that was that changed because, I mean, North Carolina played in it this year. UCLA's played in it. You've had some big names play in that first 4.
Well, let's be honest. They're not going to get a lot of rankings for making all the 16 teams play off against each other.
Right, but that was the original thought that that's what it was going to be. And it turned out, to the NCAA's credit, they didn't do it that way. Right? So let's see how they want to handle this if they go to 76. Okay, that's fine. Let's just see how they want to do it. Now, football, 1 through 16, right? No more, having Boise State be the 3rd seed because they got the automatic bid by being the top team in the group of 5. No, 1 through 16, whatever spot you land in, you land in. I mean, Penn State would have had a first-round bye, actually, last year. They were 4. Texas would have had a first-round bye instead of having to fight its guts out in overtime to beat Arizona State. Or they beat Clemson first, right? They beat Clemson first. So they didn't, Now, that part, I'll tell you, this is where it worked out, though, for the college football playoff. 3 of the stadiums that you had it in had over 100,000 seats. And the other one was Notre Dame with 80. So you had Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas, 4 iconic brands hosting first-round college football playoff games. Pretty darn good.
How does Notre Dame not have a 100,000-seat stadium?
They never have done that. They were at 59,075 for years. And then they expanded, and they got it to right around 80. And they put luxury suites in and so forth. Plus, they took out the grass. They put artificial turf in. And that's what they did.
Man. I can't imagine that they couldn't draw like that every week. No, I think I always forget about, there was that time from the late 80s to the early 2000s where they weren't Notre Dame.
No, and then there was the big one that really threw a curveball. That was when they hosted Nebraska, and Nebraska showed up, as they usually do, in droves. And I think they got 25 or 30,000 of the seats. Yikes. And all of a sudden they're looking around the stadium like, hey, we can't have this. I mean, we can't have them take over our stadium, which they did. I remember that was a big thing when Georgia came up there. Yeah. Georgia, unfortunately, my understanding is had to remove all the shot collars from the players because the game was north of the Mason-Dixon line. Southern teams don't usually play north of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah. At least it was a road team. The Georgia players couldn't drive.
Oh, you're just brutal. Just brutal.
We can blame you again.
Blame me? I said nothing. I said nothing.
You blamed it on you yesterday. You said it was from me being around you too much.
You do have a point. You do have a point. Yeah. But this is all about cash. My question is, how close are we to the limit on cash?
I'm not sure college football or the NFL finds out. Well, maybe even the NBA, but I think Major League Baseball and such things might find out sooner than some people think.
Well, let's get to the NFL for a moment. This is something I'm going to bring up with Neil. There is an opt-out in the contract, and the NFL may want to do an opt-out before 28. Why? Because they can potentially get more money, but this is the part that is a little squirrely for the NFL right now. Who gets more money from ESPN right now than the NFL?
Nobody.
The NBA.
Oh, the NBA, yeah.
The new NBA contract pays more money from ESPN to the NBA than ESPN pays to the NFL. So
we can't have that.
Well, that's what the NFL's looking at.
Yeah, it's just... Well, and it'll also be able, they can also see what they can get out of the streaming services now, too.
Well, that's the other part. We all know Netflix seems to be enamored with the NFL. Peacock is enamored with the NFL. Amazon Prime's already in with the NFL. I'm going to talk to Neil about this, about the potential opt-out, because, again, once they saw the NBA get more money out of ESPN than what they were paying, they were like, yo, whoa. We're the NFL, and you're not.